is Sandy King Carpenter, and you're listening to the Movie Raid Show.
It's time for the Movie Raid, and tonight's victim is producer Sandy King Carpenter that did They Live, amongst others. Hello.
Hi there.
And who are we scaring this year?
Hopefully anyone that picks up a comic, watches a TV show we have in development. Gosh, anybody I come across.
You're also promoting the Vault comic book right now, right?
Yes, we are. We're just, in fact, tonight delivering issue 3 of Vault, which will wrap up that mini-series of John Carpenter's Tales of Science Fiction. Then we'll head into Vortex, the next mini-series that'll run 8 issues. But right now it's the Vault. Actually, Vault, not the Vault. That one's written by James Ninnis, with art by Andrea Esparza and Sergio Martinez. It's been getting a good audience, so that's been fun.
Now, for those who have not heard or even titled this, could you explain just a little bit of the storyline, possibly the next installment of it?
Well, the whole idea behind Tales of Science Fiction is that we want to have these short runs, anywhere from 3 issues to 8 issues, of sci-fi stories, both outer space and earthbound, that have a slight horror tangent. Vault, very much in the tradition of Event Horizon, Aliens, and Sunshine. You have a team of American astronauts that come across an abandoned ship. It's a little unusual because it appears to be alien in nature, but it has writings in English, including an Emily Dickinson poem on it. So it's a mystery that has to be solved from there.
And then you're also going worldwide, or mainly to the States for this?
It's distributed to all English-speaking territories by Diamond Comic Distributors. We've got we're looking at international distribution and translation deals for all of our comics, which go from Asylum through Tales for a Halloween Night, and now for Tales of Science Fiction. And we're also about to next year launch some younger tales of horror. See what happens with that. But you can also get them through Comixology internationally, and you can go to the Storm King Productions website and get them from us online.
Any of these ever been into film format, or have you ever considered at least 1 or 2 of these just to test the waters out?
No, I mean, really, these are just created to be comics. There was a big announcement. We've made an overall deal with Universal Cable Productions. We have an overall television deal there right now, and part of that was to make a series called Nightside, from a series of English novels, and the other one was to make Tales for a Halloween Night into a series for sci-fi. Now, it won't be just regurgitating the short Halloween anthology tales. It will be a reimagining, so while it will be anthology in nature, it will probably be different stories done differently, because I don't think you should just spit back out the same thing in a different form. But it will have the flavor of the comics in a different way, because you don't want to just see the same stories.
With all the other stories, the movies as well, like Halloween and so forth, how do you maintain to keep yourself distant from your well-known work within this format as well?
There's no reason to tell the same stories. Humans are storytellers by nature. Been doing it since caveman times, sitting around fires. So I think that what we hope to do with the comics is to prove that there are new stories to tell, new ways to tell them. And one of the things we did with the comics with Halloween Nights was to bring in friends of ours who are novelists, who are screenwriters, and comic book writers to all tell new short stories. And that's the fun of it, is to see how many ways and how many types of horror stories we can tell. So if you sit down for a night, the idea is to sit down with one of the Halloween anthologies, which come out once a year at Halloween, and have an evening of ghost stories, haunted rings, sea monsters, graveyard tales, and not read the same thing twice. So it's pretty easy to avoid what we've already done.
Creative freedom, since compared to film and television, is pretty well restricted. How does this do for you for your own comic?
Well, creative freedom is great. It's our company. We can do anything we want. And you can imagine anything you want in comics. There's no budget limitation. You can have a giant sea monster for no more money than I can have a pussycat walk across the street. You can imagine anything, and that costs the same amount of money for an artist to draw that as it does, for a steel room. That's one of the fun things in comics. We can do anything. There's no boundaries. That, I think, is one of the hard things when people go to adapt comics for movies. They become giant budgets because what the audience has come to expect from them is grandiose. We can tell any tale, small or large, in a comic book. I think ideally what you want to do is, again, not do the same thing. You want to inhabit the same universe, but not just spit back what they've already gotten. You want to, I think Marvel has done some of the best job of this. You know, when they did the first Iron Man movie, it was great because it wasn't just exactly the same as the comic, and yet it inhabited the universe and brought it to life in a way that the printed page couldn't. So you have a different sense of humor. You have those things. One of the fun things about a comic book or any written material is your imagination is creating more of the character and their personality along with the artist and the writer. You know, when you cross into video games, comics, movies, they're all different storytelling formats, and you need to honor that tradition in each of those formats and give the audience something new and fresh.
And when it comes to that, there's always the dreaded controversy every time, whether it's with comic, whether it's TV or so forth. Either it's about the character wearing something that isn't supposed to be, or it's a different color of the character. Do you think companies should be more challenged in this area?
You know, I call that the tyranny of the fans. I mean, it used to be the tyranny of the studio. Now everybody's supposed to get all worked up every time a fan wants to dictate what we should be doing. I think that creators should follow what the creation dictates. I really don't care what everybody says we should be doing. We're artists, we have a vision, we put it out there, and you don't have to watch it if you don't want to.
Yeah, and sometimes the studio has so much leverage over the writer, director, and so forth. It's the point where they want this done, and then there are a lot of these guys are just not really, are always giving in rather than taking what they really want to do with this storyline and do how they want to do it. But sometimes they fall to it. Ultimately, the film just bombs, or just it's so hated by the fans themselves.
Well, you have to respect the guy that pays you, and you have to respect the guy paying the bills. I mean, again, there's a big thing about the studios being the boogeyman. Sometimes they have bad ideas. Sometimes they're smart ideas. I think that right now there's just a general fear of making the wrong decision. A lot of decisions are made that, oh my gosh, you know, nobody's going to like this, or this isn't, and they play it too safe. Like I said, I haven't found that with, say, in particular Marvel. I thought they've done a really good job. To make anybody the boogeyman when you're going out there and you're getting ready to spend $100 million on, say, a comic book franchise. Yeah, they're terrified they're gonna blow it, and they're gonna lose their jobs, and they're gonna be responsible for bankrupting a studio. You can't blame them 100% for that. You know, I think it's our jobs to be creative and at the same time to be financially responsible and to not bite the hand that feeds us. At the same time, as if you think that the project is not artistically true to what your vision is, perhaps it's time to walk away. We've walked away from things that just seem like they're too compromised. You know, it's a double-edged sword. You can't be capricious, and you also can't put down people that are willing to invest in your vision. So, because I think that's a little bratty to a certain degree. I often kind of facetiously refer to myself as the highest-priced hooker in Hollywood. How often do you just go in and smile and have someone hand you millions of dollars? That's a pretty big vote of confidence. You need to respect that. And I think that as the fans have gotten to expect more special effects, bigger things in their movies, you know, the price tag goes up, and the price tag of the marketing goes up. You know, movies are a big gamble, and those of us who really work in the business, we know what we're asking of a studio, and you got to respect that. But like I said, at a certain point, if you're sitting there going, really? You want this? You know, you want Snake Plissken to have a love interest? No, I don't think so. There's just things you got to do to be true to your school. Or walk away.
Yeah, and do you think financial responsibility just becomes deteriorating in cinema in general?
That's a hard call to make. You know, I can only speak for ourselves. We just try to say, okay, look, here's what you can do with this. Here's what's reasonable. Here's what we can make something for. And someone has to decide if it's worth that risk. You try and be a good team player. You know, you try and do the right thing by everybody.
That it just gets harder and harder as each year goes by. As you said, the price does go high, and sometimes there are people out there that do take that big risk and say, nope, I'm going to do it this way. This is how I'm going to do it. And sometimes it does work, but in the long run, like, that film won't be released until like 10 years later, or even further than that, or just direct to DVD and still generate no sales because you could have done this in a different way or in another way.
Well, everything takes a long time now. It takes much longer, and the kinds of international partnerships and multiple companies you have to put together for any movie are much more complex than they used to be. The studios are no longer financing entities that they used to be. That's why you'll see 5 or 6 companies listed as production companies. The studios are now distribution arms, and you have to really be good at putting together all of these entities ahead of time. So that's why it takes years to put any project together. There are no automatic sales. There are no automatic slam dunks in the business anymore. It doesn't happen. It used to be a lot simpler. You were just dealing with the head of the studio, and they were still financing movies then. They were still financing movies in the 90s. They were still financing movies in the 2000s. You were still dealing with a studio head who made the decisions. Now there's a much bigger committee, and marketing and distribution are making a lot of the decisions of whether or not they feel they can recoup their marketing fees. I mean, it's costing $50 million to release a movie. That's a lot of money just for a release to compete in a heavily diverse marketplace and compete for attention. The audience attention span is that of a gnat. Movies don't grow in the marketplace like they used to. Everybody dumps them like a dirty sock because they're going, look, squirrel. There's another shiny object. So you very rarely have anything grow out there. The piracy problem got so big you no longer have a real secondary Blu-ray market. People got used to the fact that if you can find it online, you can own it. It doesn't matter if it's legal or not. So that's the pressure that has come down on the creators, which is that you either get it out there, you have massive opening weekends, the studio makes its money back, or you are no longer viable because there's no other way for the studios to make back their money. So as much as everybody wants to talk about them as the evil empire, it is in fact the public that has killed that secondary market as much as they killed the recording industry's market, where that's why bands are on tour for years, because they tour to make the money that they can no longer make off of selling CDs. So, it's a love-hate relationship. The fans like to take the attitude that they created you, but at the same time, they can destroy the market through piracy. And if you can't make back the money, you can't make new product. That then makes everybody live in fear that they can't create a movie, an album, whatever piece of art to make a big instant hit. Or it leads to genre movies only being made for 5 cents because that's what they can guarantee they can make in a weekend. And that's how you get kind of substandard movies. I hate to sound jaded, but it's kind of what it boils down to for creators.
Yeah, it's a terrible thing of how it is, because there are a lot of companies out there that a lot of independent ones are like, oh wow, this is a great deal, this is something, because they may not even know what they're doing, even though they may have a nice setup or nice casting, a nice even a backer, but like you said, they'll run off to something that seems good to be true without actually looking at it before you start diving into it.
No, you have to have it. It's not good enough to just have enough money to make your movie. You have to have distribution, or it's going to sit on a shelf and die. It won't ever get seen because there's no secondary marketplace. And foreign will no longer pay for your movie and have that other distribution unless you have a guaranteed American distribution, because that's still the driving force behind foreign.
And there's always the sharing credit portion too that could also kill the whole thing too, because everybody wants their name on it, which is not a problem if you're involved with it, sure, or if you're distributing through digital or other marketing areas, yeah, great. But at the same time, they want so much money, it's like, the budget's going to drain down to nothing because of that.
Yeah, nothing will be on the screen. It's problematic.
With you and your husband's work, telling a message, what message do you intend to tell or even retell for the next generations to come? Well,
I think that, particularly horror, genre is a metaphorical storytelling base. So you tell allegorical tales through horror and fantasy. And that means you can address virtually any subject. You can do social satire like we did with They Live. You can address religious and faith-based questions like we do in the Asylum comics. I think you can address virtually any issue that is kind of something that is about the human condition. Cronenberg always did kind of body disassociative things. George Romero did, the rise of the underclass. I think that good genre movies, or anything to do with the genre, always address something bigger. They're not just about how much blood you're spilling and who you're killing. There is something else going on that gives you another layer. It's like comedy is usually about something else in order for it to sustain. There's great truths you can address through these genres. There will probably always be something a little subversive in what we do. That's the fun of it.
And could you tell us a little bit more about the Vault comics as well as release dates or anything else that you would like to also promote?
Let me see. Gosh, I only remember what dates they go to the printers. I never know. The Tales of Science Fiction will be in comic shops monthly for, we have tales coming in for the next 3 years, at least. Those are all in the works right now. They're being written by people like Louise Simonson, David J. Scow, Joe Harris. So those are going to be ongoing now for years. Every month, look for them in your local comic shop and look for them in your Diamond Previews catalogs. Tales for a Halloween Night, Volume 3, will be out, I think it's the first week in October. That's going to the printer this weekend as well. What else? Asylum will start back up early next year. And look for, on Sci-Fi, starting next year, we'll have Tales for Halloween Night as well.
And that is producer Sandy King Carpenter.